Hello and welcome. This session is sponsored by Insight. I would like to thank Insight Cloud and Data Center Transformation for being a platinum sponsor of our event. Insight is a complete IT service and solution provider that helps organizations transform technology, operations, and service delivery to meet challenges and future-proof the business. As a client-focused integrator, they are free to recommend the most appropriate solutions across cloud, IT transformation, next-generation technology, and security. Stop by their virtual booth and ask any questions you have. Thank you for coming and enjoy the session.
So good afternoon, everyone. We will give it about another 2 minutes before we get started. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Awesome, thank you. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have about 3:47, and I know we were supposed to start at 3:45. So those who will join us, and they can come in when they get here. So again, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Marrow. I am the IT Director, CIO with Durham County Government. And I'm happy to be with everyone today talking about this topic of coaching versus managing. I think this is particularly in this environment that we're in, a very important topic to cover, because what I'm finding is that coaching is playing a key role given all of the the issues that people are dealing with, particularly during this time. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started. I always like to start with a little trivia. So we're going to, in the chat, if you would just take a second and answer the two questions that you see on the screen. First question: on average, how many participants do you think per day used Zoom back in March 2020? And you can type, as an example, 1A in the chat, or 2A, or whatever you think the answer might be. Awesome. So I see some answers coming in. Okay, so we got a few more answers coming in. All right, so we'll take the first question. On average, how many participants per day use Zoom in March 2020? The answer to that one is C. On average, 200 million users jumped on Zoom back in March of 2020. And if anybody has been tracking that company, you know that they have exploded, and they exploded in the month of March. It was hard to get their attention if you were trying to get a new account or get on the phone with anyone at Zoom. So that is the nature of the type of year it has been. Question 2, what percentage of participants on a conference call are less likely to multitask with their camera on? And I see mostly C. 2C is what I see in the chat. 2C, 2B, 2A. And the answer to this one is actually 2D, 82%. 82% of people are less likely to multitask with their camera on. So for those of you who have your camera on today, I can make the assumption that I have your full attention, or at least on average, 82% of you. So I hope that's the case. And typically, I don't know about you, but I do find that when people have their cameras off, sometimes you can actually tell that they are multitasking and doing many other things at the same time. So thank you for participating in that short quiz. We will, as I go through the presentation, because I can't see you particularly, we will have questions like that where I may ask you to type what you think in the chat box there. So we're going to move on. And so what an eventful year this has been so far. So my first question to everyone, and you can either use a smiley face or no more than one word. How are you doing in 2020? How are you doing? How would you, what one word would you, or type of smiley face? How are you doing so far this year? See some great answers. Awesome, managing, numb. I like that one. Not great, not bad. Awesome. Plodding along. Very good, Chris. Kimberly, surviving. Blessed. Very good. Lonelier. Yes. Very good. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for providing some feedback. Okay, what's that last one, Dale? I would try to pronounce that one, agathocological. Dale, would you like to tell us? Not sure I've seen that word before. Composed of both good and evil. All right, thank you for sharing that. That's a word I'm going to put in my bank. A new word I've learned today. Thank you. Awesome. All right, so today we're going to have a conversation. I don't particularly like an agenda because we really want to have a conversation, and the topic is coaching versus managing. And so during this conversation today, what I'd like to talk to you about is just kind of go through, keep it pretty much at a high level. What is managing versus what is coaching? And talk about the impact of coaching across the organization or within the department or within the business or within your local government. Talk about some benefits and goals of coaching versus managing. And I'd like to share with you, there's a lot of coaching models out there. And so when we talk about coaching, what do we mean when we say coaching? We're talking about simply having a conversation, and then we'll summarize our findings. Okay, so that's the agenda for the conversation today. And as I said before, I'll open it up. Thank you for sharing in the chat window. So here's a slide. I always like to use sports analogies, and so my apology to those of you who may not necessarily be familiar with these two games, but in these two games, interestingly enough, I don't know if anybody has ever wondered why the head of a basketball team is called the coach and the head of a baseball team is called the manager. Any ideas? If you have some ideas, I'd like for you to go ahead. And as we said before, this is going to be an interactive session. So for those of you who know the two sports, if you have some ideas of why, we'll take the first one. Why is in baseball the head called the manager? Baseball is more strategic. All right. That was Brant. Thank you, Brant. Brant Meredith. Thank you. Anybody else on baseball and why the head is called the manager? Okay, let's take basketball. In basketball, there's typically, for anyone who may have coached little league basketball and have served as a coach, why are you referred to as a coach as opposed to a manager? So we'll keep moving. So the answer has to do teaching skills. Thank you, Helen, for that, teaching skills. So the manager has to do not just with the obvious difference between the two sports, but also how the players are coached and managed during the games. And as I said before, talking a little bit, okay, basketball has different plays. Yes, very good. So just as baseball and basketball are two very different sports, coaching and managing are two very different activities. They are not the same. And oftentimes, I may hear someone use them interchangeably, and they are two very different things. One has to do with directing, and the other has to do with teaching, as someone indicated in the chat. So managing. We're going to talk a little bit about managing, and we're going to talk a little bit about coaching. So let's go to we'll go to the next slide here. So when we talk about managing, what kind of things come to mind when we talk about managing? If you had to just indicate, one word answer, what types of things come to mind? Someone said teaching in the chat box already. Directives, very good. Allocate, Thank you, Jimmy and Kim. And if we have any managers or leaders, and this is a kind of a trick question, but if we have any leaders or managers in the session, indicate that as well by just typing a yes. Awesome, thank you. So when I do these sessions, even in a conference room, I'd like to run very, very interactive sessions. I ask a lot of questions and like to get the audience involved. And so that's what we're trying to do here virtually today. So when you think about managing, and you don't necessarily have to think about work, think about managing at home, what kinds of things come to mind. And so let me share with you. So when we think about managing, right, we think about telling. I think someone said directing. I think someone actually said authority, addressing immediate needs, and working towards a specific outcome. Anything else comes to mind when we think about managing? So if I go back to the, if you think about the previous slide where I talked about in baseball, right, that the head of the team is called the manager. So during a baseball game, the manager focuses primarily on strategy and managing the flow of the game. Actually, during baseball, the manager decides who pitches and when. You know, in other words, if I'm a pitcher on a baseball team, I just can't, hey, you know, I'm going to go in this ending. I can't just do that. You know, that's decided by the manager. The manager positions the players in the field based on the tendencies of the batter, right? So the manager will say, okay, you know, so and so, I want you to play right field this ending. And even the manager relays commands to the coaches, who then tell the players when to swing, when to pitch, and how to run the bases. So a very different kind of set of instructions than in basketball that we see in basketball. So we're going to go now to coaching. So when we talk about coaching, what kinds of things come to mind? The difference between coaching now and managing. So I'm going to wait for you to just type a few things in the chat box there. Mindset. Thank you, Jimmy. And Jimmy, if you don't mind advising, what do you mean by mindset? Kim, collaboration, a very good one. Collaboration. Thank you. That's a good one. Encouraging, Wanda, thank you. Supporting, Chris, very good. These are all good. Empathy, excellent, excellent. Motivating, very good, Nancy, thank you. And Brant Meredith said coaching is more mentoring. Interesting. And managing is more coordinating. Thank you for that, Brant. And Brant, we're going to, in a few slides, we're going to mention mentoring. I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you for that. So I'm going to throw some words up on this on the slide, and I think you've hit on many of these. So coaching is exploring. Coaching is facilitating, and I'll talk a little bit about some of these as we go through the presentation. Coaching is working for long-term improvement, not necessarily immediate improvement, although it may be, but ultimately you're working towards a goal, right? You're trying to improve upon a goal that the coachee may have. And there may be many possible outcomes that you're working towards, as opposed to a single outcome that you might work towards when you're managing. And I think somebody said empowering, yeah, encouraging. Coaching is all of those. Empathy, because when you are coaching, you bring to coaching empathy. And motivating, yes. So you could put a lot of different words in this category, particularly when you think about, you know, whether it's coaching in sports. We have a picture here of you know, the Duke head basketball coach. We have a picture here of you know, for those of you who follow tennis, Serena Williams, coach, who obviously is motivating and facilitates, partners, provides, you know, collaborates with Serena before she goes on court. And you can see even with coaching, you might have team coaching, right? Where you're sitting with your team and you're providing team coaching. And we're going to really get into now a little bit of what we mean. So in basketball, just to go back and close that conversation between baseball and basketball, the coach has the same authority as a baseball manager, but he or she gets more involved with the action on the court. He or she calls out plays and defensive schemes to the players, but they are free. They are free to implement those plays using their own skills and knowledge as they see fit on the floor. So they may have to change up depending upon what the other team is doing, right? So during timeouts, the coach draws up plays on the clipboard, During the timeout, the coach is oftentimes being empathetic. The coach is encouraging, which we see in the chat window. Oftentimes, the coach is supportive and providing suggestions, right? If a player does this, I suggest you do that. And oftentimes, the coach instructs players on how to react to many possible outcomes, again, depending on what the other team is doing. So, all of those things that we see on the screen, we see particularly in coaching. Now, you might be asking the question, how does all of this affect to business? And which is why we're here today, right? How does these things affect to the work that we do? And so in business, we have to be both coaches and managers. We have to lead effectively. We need to do both, especially today. So I might ask the question, since many of you have been attending the conference this fall, how many of you have had to take a side call and provide some management leadership during the call? You can. So we want to get into, at this point, really get into how does coaching affect employee development, leadership development, and how does it affect the work that we do day in and day out. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of a coaching culture. And when we talk about coaching, right, we said before that it's bringing empathy to the conversation. It's being more collaborative. Coaching really is about strengthening relationships within organizations. It really is about uh, building on engagement. You know, coaching encourages the development of accountability, the search for concrete solutions, uh, individual creativity, and dexterity. So coaching is a real source uh, of organizational development. It contributes to the well-being at work by finding solutions to everyday situations, by using available resources, by making possible uh, uh, the resources available to employees, at least making them aware of resources that they can use. And one of the big things that coaching does is it improves overall business performance, how the organization is performing within the company or within the local government. Improving that performance increases with coaching. And here are some stats just to look at some studies that have been done. We've seen that 80% of those who have received coaching report positive impact in areas such as work performance, communication skills, productivity, well-being, and business management strategies. So you can see the importance of coaching, right? And the benefits of coaching, particularly in the workplace, around improving work performance, communication skills, productivity, well-being, and business management for all. This study also looked at the effects of coaching on culture and how employees are engaged. And the study said that 65% of employees in a strong coaching culture are highly engaged. I don't know how many of your organizations do pulse surveys, but be interesting, if you don't, to consider that question to get at how engaged are employees in the organization, in the work that they do. And certainly, this study is suggesting that coaching benefits organizations when they do coaching. The other benefit of coaching is it improves team functioning. So many of us work on teams. Many of us have teams that we are members of. And this study found that 57% of those who are coached on teams, it improves overall team functioning. So you can begin to see some of the benefits of coaching. I'm just hitting on three particular areas here with these stats. Certainly, there are a number of other benefits to coaching within the organization over managing. And so we're going to again try to help differentiate coaching versus managing. So this next slide here talks about the goals of coaching within an organization. And when we talk about coaching, right, we're talking about, what are some of the reasons why we might implement coaching within an organization? So one of the reasons is that, the goal is to improve overall employee performance. Now, I don't know if this is a challenge for any of you on the participating in the conference today, but sometimes just managing does not do it. And over the course of my career, I've found that coaching plays a much more powerful role in terms of improving overall employee performance. It also helps people achieve greatness. It helps people achieve things that they may not think they were able to get done or able to do. And so coaching brings a new awareness to the employee, to the person, to help them see a way to do things that they may not have seen before. It also, obviously, if it improves employee performance, is going to help the organization grow as well. And we've seen that through some of the stats where coaching helps organizations grow. It helps to retain talent. There's a lot of studies that show that coaching helps to retain key talent within the organization when you provide coaching. And it builds habits of constant achievement when you provide coaching, right? Employees are constantly achieving, constantly meeting their goals, doing the things that they set out to achieve within the organization. And many times, people get stuck. Whether it's within the organization, it might be outside of the organization, it might be at home. Sometimes, people can just get stuck. I don't know about you, but I've gotten stuck before. It's like, well, what do I do? Where do I go from here? And so coaching can help to get a person unstuck and get that person back moving forward again. So these are just, again, some of the goals on why you might want to consider implementing, if you're not already doing it. Begin to do more coaching as opposed to managing. And so here's a question for everyone. When you sit through a performance review, is that performance review managing, or is that performance review coaching, or can that performance review be both? I'd like to get some feedback on that in the chat window. Should be both. Very good. Yeah, should be a combination of both. Thank you, Cheryl. And some of you have said the same thing, Mike. Probably situational as to which. Good answer. Thank you for that. Coaching should have come a long way. Agree. Yeah, so I'm going to say that it's interesting, right? So yeah, I think it's situational, right? It should be both, but sometimes it's hard to do both in a performance review, and you'll see why here in a second. Okay. All right, so we're going to go to the next one, and the sun is really hitting me here. So as managers or as leaders within organizations, we wear different hats, and we've already seen in the chat window someone mentioned mentoring. Today I'm only focusing on coaching and managing, and we talked a little bit about the difference between managing and coaching. But as managers or as leaders, or even sometimes, take it outside of the workplace, even at home, we probably wear all of these different hats to some extent, right? We're probably not licensed therapists or licensed counselors, but we may find ourselves in situations where we have to do, from time to time, some counseling. Now, someone used the term mentoring in the chat. So I'd like for you to distinguish. How would you distinguish mentoring from coaching? So does anyone out there have served as a mentor? And if you've served as a mentor, uh, when you're serving as a mentor, what are you doing? Mentoring is by example. Mentoring is setting an example. Coaching is showing how. Okay. Very good. Thank you for that feedback. Mentoring to me is more of leading by example, and coaching is more teaching. Ah, so maybe we should walk through these different hats on the screen. So we've talked about managing, right? We've talked about managing. Managing is more directing, focusing in on short-term goals, right? Managing. Mentoring is typically what? Mentoring is typically when a senior colleague, seen as a more knowledgeable and more knowledgeable person, worldly wise, is given advice and and is serving as a role model. Think that's what you can think of mentoring as, right? Kind of just a quick definition of counseling, because that's not really what we're focusing on, but we know counseling is working with a client who might feel uncomfortable or is dissatisfied with their life. They're seeking guidance and advice. So counseling is a lot different from the first two. And then, of course, therapy is working with a client who seeks relief from whether it might be psychological or physical symptoms. And sometimes when you're coaching or even managing, you might have to recommend someone to therapy. I've had to do that before. And someone mentioned training in the chat. So training is the process of getting knowledge, skills, or abilities by study, right? Experience or teaching, right? So training is, by definition, the trainer is the expert, and the training course is likely to be targeted or on specific skills for immediate results. And then, of course, consultancy. Many of us hire consultants. We bring consultants into the organization to do work for us. So a consultant provides, you can think of a consultant as someone who provides expertise and subject matter expertise, and they help to solve business problems or develop a business as a whole. We've talked a little bit about teaching. Teaching passes knowledge from the teacher to the student. And coaching. So there's a huge difference now between teaching someone and helping them to learn. In coaching, fundamentally, the coach is helping the individual, and this is important. The coach is helping the individual to improve their own performance. In other words, the coach is helping them to learn. And good coaches believe that the individual always has the answer. This is important. Good coaches believes that the individual, the coachee, always has the answer to their own problems, but understands that they may need to find the answer. So the coach is helping them find the answer to their own problem. That is how coaching is defined in the industry. So very different from any of these other topics that we have, or any of these other attributes that we have here on the screen, any of these other hats that we might wear. Okay. And coaching requires quality time. Coaching requires quality practice, and coaching requires feedback. And so it's something that you certainly can't uh, uh, necessarily pick up after this session and say I'm an expert at coaching, right? It does require practice, it does require feedback, and it does require time. And there's a lot more that goes into coaching, but it is something that we all can do, right? We all, I'm sure, in the various hats that we wear, we all probably in some form or fashion today provide some coaching, whether at work, whether at home or maybe in some of our extracurricular activities. So it's a so what we want to talk about here is just looking at the time. Yeah. So in coaching, there's a lot of different models out there that people use. This is one model. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through it in detail, but this is called the GROW model. And in the GROW model, there's uh, 4 letters, GROW, and in the GROW model, it's G stands for the goal. What do you want to achieve? Goals give the session, a purpose. And so you're trying to get at what is it that the person is trying to achieve, right? The R is you're doing a reality check. You're checking to see, okay, what's going on at the current time. So you're just checking in with the person. It's a reality check that helps the coachees to set appropriate expectations for themselves. And then the O, you're looking at what are all of the possible ways to achieve the goal, right? So the goal that the coachee brings to the table, you're trying to help that person look at all of the possible options that might be available to that person, right? You're trying to help bring some awareness they may not have thought about, things that they may not have, oftentimes just doesn't come natural. But through a series of questions, you're helping them think about options to satisfy or to get at the goal that they're trying to accomplish. And then the last W, what is it? What is your action plan here? Sometimes people say the W stands for will. What is it that you will do, right? And what you're trying to do is in a coaching session, you're trying to end with a commitment to act. You're trying to get the coachee to take some actions, right? It's just not another conversation. You're actually trying to get the coachee to take some actions, be committed to act, to carry some actions forward in order to move forward, right? In order to remove those roadblocks that might be in the way. So that's just a quick overview of the GROW model. This model has been around for many years, and so it's a good coaching model. It's a very easy coaching model to use. So I don't know if we have time, but if we do have time, I think we do. It's if we have anyone who wants to any volunteers for a 5-minute coaching demonstration. And so what we're looking for here is if there's someone who's dealing with something, dealing with an issue, it could be a work-related issue that you don't mind disclosing. If it's something that you're okay with discussing during the call, if you come off mute, identify yourself, and we'll go through a quick 5-minute demonstration of the GROW model. Do we have anyone? And if not, we'll continue to move. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll use in the chat box, for those of you who have sat through, you've been on the other end of a coaching session. In other words, you've been a coachee. How about indicate that in the coaching in the chat box? Okay, so we have a couple, Brant. Very good. Now, for those of you who are on, just using the couple of minutes that we have left, for those of you who have coached employees before, would anyone like to share their experience? And if so, you can come off of mute, I believe, and share your experience with our participants today with coaching employees. Okay, well, what we're going to do at this point, we're going to open it up. Does anyone have any questions regarding coaching? And I'm happy to share, if there's questions, I'm happy to share my experience. And if you have any questions, you could type them either in the chat box or you can come off of mute and type it there. You can articulate your question there. So again, the intent of this session was just to give you a sort of a high-level overview of the difference between coaching, the difference between mentoring. As you've seen in the chat box, sometimes we use the two terms interchangeably, but they're very different. And the difference between coaching and managing, a very different skill, and between counseling, therapy, and all of those other terms that we typically hear. So coaching is a very different. Really, what coaching is as we summarize here, coaching is really the coach is acting as a listener, right? And the coach has really given the person 100% of their listening. And coaching is really about unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So the thing that we want to remember in coaching is that coaching involves the belief that the individual has the answers to their own problems that they bring to coaching. In other words, if you're coaching someone, right, you come to the conversation with the belief that the coachee, the person on the other end, already has the answer to the problem or issue. So we don't put on our expert hat. And sometimes in managing, you know how sometimes in a team meeting, you know the answer and you might spurt it out. Well, in coaching, it's the opposite, right? You're really there to coach the person through a series of questions using whatever model it might be to help them move forward. And to move forward might simply be to help move a rock out of the road, to help bring some new awareness to the conversation that they may not be aware of. It might even be to help them see a blind spot, right? That they didn't know they had. And so that's what coaching is. Coaching is they're the expert. You're simply there to help drive through a series of questions using whatever model that you might be using to help them bring some new awareness to the problem that they're trying to solve. So I have here on the screen my contact information. If anybody wants to, if you haven't experienced coaching before, I'm happy to even offline if you want to do a 5 or 10-minute coaching session. Not necessarily in a session like this. Just pop me an email and we'll get something on the calendar, and we're happy to introduce that to you. So again, wanted to provide just a very high-level overview of coaching versus managing, the difference between the two. And again, I want to go back to something that we do every day, and that is in performance reviews. Really, performance reviews are, you can use it, and I'm gonna say this: if you're going to use it as both, you really need to turn off the managing, and you need to put on the coaching hat and say, now I'm going to sit and listen and ask questions, right? But I'm not given any answers. And for some of us, that might be difficult, but because you might hear the person going through something and you want to just blurt out, why don't you do this? Well, that thing that you might recommend might work perfectly for you, but for the person sitting across from you, that doesn't work for them. And so that's what coaching is. Coaching is to bring out of them something that they feel comfortable doing, not taking the approach that you might take. So I hope that we've provided some good information on coaching, the difference between coaching and managing, and happy to take any questions that if anybody has. We'll keep the chat window open here for a minute or two. And certainly if you have anything to say, you can say that as well. So thank you everyone for joining the session today. Appreciate your attention. And I look forward to doing this again sometime soon. Someone said, have you ever had to coach someone who was unappreciative of a younger person being their supervisor? Ah, great question. So that's an interesting question, right? And the answer is yes. But again, coaching is very different than managing. That would be my response, Paul, to your question, because I think you're thinking about managing, and certainly in situations like that, people do think differently. But in coaching, right, I'm coming to the conversation strictly as a listener, right? And so I'm not really coming in as I know more than you, I'm the subject matter expert. No. When a person really understands what coaching is, they understand that I'm coming in recognizing the expertise that you bring to the table. So we're flipping it, right? And so that's a great question, Paul. I hope I answered that for you. Ashley, I have. It took time to gain their trust and for them to really engage and accept my assistance. Very good comment, Ashley. Yes, because coaching is about a trusting relationship, right? Number one, they have to feel that you're going to respect what? Their confidentiality, right? Because in coaching, you might come across something that's very confidential. And so that person sitting across from you, they really need to feel like we have a trusting relationship and I can disclose, I can open up. Because believe it or not, in coaching, a lot of times, what might be getting in the way might be a life related issue. And so the person has to feel comfortable that, yep, the coach I'm talking to, I trust that person. So great comment, Ashley. Thank you for making that point. Awesome. Anything else I can answer out? And I appreciate the thank yous. And as I said before, I just hope that we've provided some information that may help some of you out there. So thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Greg, this is Paul.
Yes.
Hey,
Hey, Paul.
I just wanted to clarify a little bit. I'm not the supervisor here in question. I hired both of them.
Ah, okay.
So I hired the supervisor just 2 months ago.
Okay.
She's a lot younger than this other person, less experienced, but fully capable.
Yes.
And so that's kind of I'm trying to figure out how to build that relationship between get the one to be accepting of the other.
Ah, okay.
It's not me.
Okay. Well, Paul, in that case, you might have to provide some coaching. And in a situation like that, I'm gonna give you a quick example, right? If I was coaching the person who might have a little reservation, hesitation, I might ask the question in a coaching session, what is getting in the way for you to be accepting of person X?
Okay.
You follow me?
Yeah.
And the answer to that might be something that has nothing to do with work. It might be an experience, right?
Okay.
And I'm not trying to give them the answer. I'm just trying to, through a series of questions, I'm trying to get them to some awareness, right? And oftentimes I discover in coaching that the person is not even aware of what it is that they're doing. And sometimes in coaching, the light bulb goes off and they go, wow, I didn't know that was happening.
Right.
So in a
Just,
case like that, Paul, you might be the one who have to provide some coaching for both of them.
all right.
Yep.
Well, cool. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. And thank you,
You're
Ashley,
welcome.
for responding.
Awesome. Thank you. All righty. Well, if there are, I don't see anything else in the chat. I'm not hearing anything. So again, I'm going to say thank you. And I am going to stop sharing. And I am going to end the session. So thank you all again. And please do not hesitate to shoot me an email if anyone has any questions or again, would like to take the offer up on a coaching session. Thank you.